Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Vance. In today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with you how I was able to sew this beautiful blouse worn by Veekee James. If you've not watched the drafting video, I will share the link on the description box so that you can go back to watch how I was able to draft this beautiful blouse. So if you're interested in this video, let's get right into it. So guys, for this tutorial, I'll be using this 2 yards of crepe fabric. So I've gone ahead to put my interface, that's my paper stay to it. So I'll go ahead and place my pattern paper on it like this, and then I'll go ahead and pin it down. So when I'm done pinning down the pattern paper to the fabric so that it can stay put on the fabric without shaking, I'll go ahead and add my allowance. So I'll be using 1 inch allowance down here, just like this. So when I'm done adding this allowance, I'll go ahead and cut it out. So this was me cutting out the our pattern sheets with the fabric together, just the way you see me doing. So guys, when I'm done cutting, I'll set it aside and then I'll fold our pattern sheet again to cut out the front. So for the front, instead of folding it into 2, you have to use 1 because your patterns are divided already into 2. This is the other part, and then there's still another part for the front block. So I went ahead to pin it down. Remember, I didn't fold the fabric into 2. It's just 1. There's no need to fold it. You just have to use 1, like single. So when I'm done guys, I'll go ahead and also add allowance to the bottom part of the fabric. But before I add it, I'll go ahead and trim out the part I do not want before adding the allowance. So this is me adding 1 inch allowance at the full length of the pattern. So after I was done adding allowance to the full length of the pattern, at the center front too, I'll be adding allowance. But the allowance I'll be using for the center front is 1 inch. So I'll go all the way from the full length to the neckline by ½ inch. So I really didn't use my tape here because I used my eyes. I eyeballed it. So I think you should do the same thing too. You can use your tape, you can just use your eyeball to do it. But for accuracy, I would advise that you use your tape to measure your allowances. So this was me still going ahead to add my ½ inch allowance at the center front of my pattern. So when I'm done adding the allowance, the next thing I'm going to do is to cut. So guys, when I'm done cutting, I'll still set it outside, and then I'm going to go ahead and open up the fabric again. If you notice, I did not fold into 2, it's just a single fold. So I placed our front block on the fabric, and then I'll go ahead and pin it down so that it will stay put on the fabric. So this was me pinning down just like this. I had to rearrange it because the space was small for me to add my allowance. So that was why I had to remove the pins and then rearrange and start all over. So after I'm done pinning, I'll still add my 1 inch allowance at the full length of the blouse. So this was me adding 1 inch allowance at the full length of the blouse. So when I'm done adding allowance at the full length of the blouse, I'll also add allowance at the center front of the blouse. So from the full length, I'll go add 1/2 inch down to the neckline. Sorry that this part is not showing because I didn't position my camera in a good way, but this was actually me here adding 1/2 inch allowance. So this is it. So when I'm done with the 1/2 inch, I'll go ahead and cut it out. So after I was done, I folded my fabric, my lining into two like this, placed my back block, and then I'll go ahead and cut it. So when I'm done cutting, I'll set it aside, and then I'll remove 1/2 inch from the lining part because I do not want the lining to start poking out. So basically I'm going to fold my lining again single, just the way I did, and then I'm going to cut out the lining just the way you see me doing. And when I'm done cutting out the lining, I'm going to also raise my fabric and remove 1/2 inch allowance from my lining. This is so your lining will not show or it will not be visible that you added lining. So this was me removing 1/2 inch from it. It's very important that you remove your 1/2 inch so that your lining will not show, will not start poking out. I don't know if you get. So I thought I placed my lining and then I placed my fabric on it, right side facing right side. So I went ahead to cut it out just the way you see me doing. So when I'm done cutting out, I'll still raise my main fabric and then I'll remove the 1/2 inch that I did for all the patterns. So this is it. So when I'm done, guys, I'll remove all my pins from all the fabric so that we'll get started to the sewing part of it. So this was me removing all the pins and separating the linings from the main fabric. So when I'm done, so this is the back, guys. So I've placed my lining facing my lining and my fabric together. I'll do the same thing for this side. I'll go ahead and sew it out. And then for my main block, that's the front block. First of all, I wanted to use this pattern. I wanted to first sew my main fabric first with 1/2 inch before then I'll sew my lining. But guys, it didn't work that way at all. So I will not advise you to go through with this method. But if you can, why not? I would advise you that you sew your lining and your fabric together. Don't sew your fabric and your fabric and then lining and lining. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. You know, if you want to go ahead with inseam finishing, they will say sew your fabric to fabric, lining to lining. But really, for this tutorial, I tried using it, but it didn't work. But if you can do it, why not? Go ahead with it. So I've gone ahead to sew my back block. As you can see, I'm turning it. I'll go ahead and iron it out, and then I'll show you how it looks like. So this was when I was done ironing. As you can see, it's already looking very fine. It's just remaining for us to add the zip, but we're going to set it aside first, and then I'll go ahead with my front block. So this is my front block, guys. I told you initially that I tried using the other method, but it didn't work. So basically I'm going to place my lining on my main fabric, and then I'll go ahead and sew it. I'll place my lining again just like this, and then I will sew it down, and I'll show you how it looks like when I'm done sewing it. So guys, this was when I was done sewing my front block. You can see I've gone ahead to sew it. So this is me trying to trim out the excesses from the front block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn it out, and I'll iron. So this is the other part of the front. I'll go ahead and trim out the threads, and I will notch those neckline, the stylish neckline. I'll notch it so that I can easily turn the lining without it squeezing. I don't know if you get. So this was me notching our neckline design so that I can easily turn it. So when I was done notching, I turned. As you can see, these are our front block already. It's looking so pretty, so I'll go ahead and iron it. So this was when I was done ironing, guys. So I'm going to place it like this, and then I'll sew it down. So I was done sewing it down. So this is it. I'm about to add my darts. Remember, we are adding a dart. So I'll bring in my pattern paper, and then I'll place it on the main fabric, and then I'll trace out the dart line. This is because I do not want to make mistake in adding my darts. So I will advise that you do the same thing. Place your pattern paper on your fabric, that's on the lining part of your fabric, and trace out the darts the way you did it in your pattern sheet. Trace it out on your fabric, just the way I'm doing. So this was me tracing it out. I turned it over again so that I can get my darts clearly. Now, seeing what I'm doing, with the aid of my pattern paper, I was able to get my dart. So I'll go ahead and sew it down like this, and I'll show you how it looks like. So this was when I was done. So this is the back pattern. I'll also go ahead and add my dart following the front pattern. So I use my pattern to trace out my dart just the way I did for the front. I'm also doing the same thing for the back. So this was me tracing out all the dart lines, and then I'm going to go ahead and sew that part down. Do the same thing for this other part. Trace it. Connect the points like this, and then I'll go ahead and sew it down. So this was when I was done sewing the back block down. As you can see, I've also gone ahead to iron. That's why you're seeing that water effect there. So this is the front too. I've gone ahead to sew my front dart. As you can see, it's looking so good already. So the next thing I'm going to do is to place my back block and my front block together, so that I'll go ahead and sew my shoulder to shoulder. So this was it. I'll go ahead to my sewing machine and sew my shoulder to shoulder. So I'm also going to add my zip too. So basically this was it when I was done adding my zip, guys. Our dress is really looking fine. So this is zip. So what I'm going to do next is to take my body measurement. So for my body measurement, guys, I'll take my bust, my tummy, my my waist, and my hip line. So I'll do this off the camera. So this is the button I'll be using, guys. So this was when I was done fixing the button. The next thing I'm going to do is to add my sleeve. I've already done my shaping. This is my sleeve. So the last thing on this list is to add my buttons. Is to add my sleeve. So I'll go ahead and add my sleeves. So for this part, this is the net I'll be using. For the length of the width of the net, I'll be using 2 inches for the width. This is the width or the length, but I call it width because width, I feel like width is the shortest part. So I'll be using 2 inches for the width of the net. Then for the length of the net, you can use whatever you feel like. I didn't actually measure it, so I'll go ahead and gather it. Although I'll not be making use of this net for this tutorial because I don't like that part of the net. So this was when I was done gathering the nets. So what I'm going to do is, from where my dad started from 6 inches. So that's where I'm going to place the net, just like this. I'll face it this way, upside down. Then after placing it upside down, I'll sew it down, and then place it back how it's meant to be. So this was me placing it upside down. I'll go ahead and sew it like this, and then I'll turn it back again and top stitch. So that is how you can place your net, if it's net you want to use or you want to. Okay, so you go ahead and sew. It's your choice. If you want to use lace, you want to use net, it's just your choice. So basically, I didn't actually use this, guys. So this was the final look. I paired it with this beautiful trouser, this color. Well guys, thank you for watching my video to the end. I'm going to see you in my next tutorial. Please do well to subscribe to my channel, like my video, share, and leave a comment in the comment section. Bye guys.